My daughter-in-law and her mother planned a trap. They left me on a deserted highway more than 200 miles from home. "If you want to get back, walk," they yelled, laughing while I stood there with my suitcases in hand. I thought it was a joke, but it was the cruelest goodbye of my life. I never went back. 3 years later, when life was finally smiling on me, there was a knock on my door. She called me 72 times desperate. When I finally answered, my response changed everything. It was unexpected and final. My hands, which had held his so many times now, clung to nothing as the desert swallowed the evening light. Dust gathered in my dry throat as I screamed his name, knowing he wouldn't hear me. He didn't want to hear me. "Michael, Michael." Only the wind answered, mocking my desperation. My son, my only son, had abandoned me in the middle of nowhere on a deserted highway between Phoenix and Las Vegas. The water bottle they left me was almost empty. The sun began to set, and the reality of my situation hit me with every accelerated beat of my heart. I am 68 years old, I have arthritis, and my son wants me to die. It had all started 3 years ago when Michael at 42 introduced me to Chloe. She was an attractive woman, 10 years younger than him, with a calculating smile that I mistook for shyness at the time. "Mom, she's special," he had told me, and I'm happy to see him excited after his divorce had blessed them with my approval. I didn't see the signs, or maybe I didn't want to see them. The way Chloe examined my house, sizing up every object as if it already belonged to her. The questions about my savings, about the will, about my plans for the future. The insistence that I sell my house to move in with them into a place that was more modern, more comfortable, more secure. My house, the one I had bought with my late husband 40 years ago, the one I had maintained with my teacher's salary after I was widowed. The one that had been Michael's refuge during his childhood and adolescence. My home. "It's for your own good, Mom," Michael insisted. "You can't live alone anymore." But I could. I still can. My arthritis makes some tasks difficult, but my mind is clear. My routines are set. My neighbors know me and look out for me. I didn't need help that meant giving up my independence, my dignity. The pressure mounted when Linda, Chloe's mother, joined the campaign. A bitter woman who saw me as an obstacle to her daughter's plans. "Old people are stubborn," I heard her say once, thinking I couldn't hear. "But they all become compliant eventually." I resisted for months. I resisted the surprise visits, the inspections of my refrigerator, the comments about the dust on the high shelves I could no longer reach. I resisted the attempts to isolate me from my friends, to convince me I needed constant supervision to make me feel incompetent. Until today. Until Michael told me he had found the perfect house for the four of us. Him, Chloe, Linda, and me. A house we could buy if I sold mine. "We need to go see it immediately," he insisted. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." The coffee Chloe offered me before we left had a strange taste, but I drank it so as not to offend her. By the time we got in the car, I felt dizzy, confused. Michael and Chloe's voices came through distorted, as if through a tunnel. I remember fragments of the journey roads I didn't recognize, whispered conversations, stifled laughter. When the car stopped, we were in the middle of nowhere. Michael helped me get out, handed me a water bottle and a bag with a sandwich. "Wait here, Mom. We'll be right back." They didn't come back. The effect of whatever they gave me began to wear off as I watched the car's taillights disappear over the horizon. And then I understood. There was no house. There was no concern for my well-being. Only greed. Greed for my property, for my money, for getting rid of the burden I represented. Now the sun has completely set. The temperature drops quickly as it only does in the desert. My light jacket won't be enough for the night. There's no phone signal. There are no visible lights in any direction. No sound of nearby traffic. I sit on the edge of the road trying to control the panic. I need to think. I need a plan. I need to survive tonight so I can look for help tomorrow. And I need to accept a devastating truth. My own son tried to kill me. The cold of the desert night seeps through my clothes as I gaze at the stars, wondering if they'll be the last thing I see. But something inside me refuses to give up. A spark of outrage, of anger, of determination. I will not die here. I will not give them that satisfaction. With effort, I get up. The road stretches in both directions like a black scar on the land. I don't know which way leads back to civilization, but staying still means certain death. I choose a direction and start walking. Every step is a statement. Every breath, an act of rebellion. My name is Emily Foster. I am 68 years old. My son wants me to die, but I choose to live. The Mojave Desert doesn't forgive the unprepared. I know this because I taught it for decades to my elementary school students. The extreme temperatures, the scarcity of water, the dangerous animals. I never imagined that one day my survival would depend on those lessons. The night wears on as I walk along the empty highway. My steps are slow but steady. The arthritis in my knees protests with every movement, but the pain is almost welcome. It keeps me alert. It reminds me that I'm still alive. I ration the water I have left, just a few sips in the bottle. The sandwich they left me, a gesture of false compassion that now seems obscene. I save it for when the hunger becomes unbearable. Right now, I need all my strength to keep moving. The stars are my only company, bright indifferent to my tragedy. I orient myself by the North Star, confirming that I'm heading north. If my calculations are correct, I should eventually reach a town, maybe even Las Vegas. But how many miles separate me from civilization? Can I cover them before dehydration, heat, or exhaustion overcomes me? Every so often, I stop to rest. I sit on the roadside, close my eyes, and breathe deeply. In those moments, memories assault me. Michael as a child, running towards me with open arms. Michael as a teenager, rebellious but with a good heart. Michael as an adult, visiting me every Sunday without fail, until Chloe came into our lives. At what point did my son become a stranger? When was love replaced by convenience, by the cold calculation of what he could get from me? The sound of a rattle snaps me out of my thoughts. A few feet away, a snake slithers over the warm ground. I freeze, holding my breath until the animal disappears into the darkness, a reminder that I'm not alone in this desert, and that not all my companions are friendly. I continue walking. The moon dimly lights the way, casting ghostly shadows of cacti and dry bushes. The cold intensifies, making my teeth chatter. I rub my arms, trying to generate heat, but my tired body barely responds. When my legs finally refuse to take another step, I look for shelter. A group of large rocks by the road offers some protection from the wind. I huddle between them, using my purse as a makeshift pillow. Exhaustion overcomes me, and despite the fear, the cold, and the uncertainty, I fall asleep. The dawn awakens me with its relentless light. For a moment, disoriented, I forget where I am and why. Then reality returns like a slap in the face. The abandonment, the betrayal, the imminent danger. I sit up slowly. Every muscle in my body protests. My mouth is dry, my skin tight from the night's cold. I take a small sip of water, knowing I must conserve every drop. The sandwich remains untouched. My hunger still hasn't overcome my determination to ration it. The sun begins its ascent, promising a scorching day. I must use the early hours to make as much progress as possible before the heat becomes unbearable. I set off again, ignoring the pain in my joints, the weakness in my legs. By mid-morning, the landscape begins to change subtly. Cacti are more abundant, the vegetation more varied. Am I getting closer to an inhabited area, or is it just my desperate imagination? The heat is now oppressive. Sweat soaks my clothes, increasing my dehydration. Sips of water are more and more tempting, but I force myself to resist. I will need that liquid when the sun is at its highest. A distant hum makes me stop. I strain my ears, fearing it's another hallucination. But no, it's real. The sound of an engine. A vehicle is approaching. I stand in the middle of the road, waving my arms frantically. The car, a worn-out pickup truck, appears on the horizon. I shout, I jump. I do everything I can to get its attention. The truck slows down. A middle-aged woman with sun-weathered skin and cautious eyes watches me from the driver's seat. "Are you okay, ma'am?" she asks, without turning off the engine, keeping a safe distance. The words get stuck in my throat. How do you explain the unexplainable? How do you summarize the deepest betrayal in one sentence? They left me here, I managed to say finally. My son and his wife left me here to die. Disbelief crosses her face quickly, followed by compassion. She turns off the engine and gets out of the truck. "I'm Lucy," she says, approaching slowly, as if afraid of scaring me. "We're going to help you." And with those simple words, my world expands again. From the absolute loneliness of abandonment to human connection. From the certainty of death to the possibility of life. Lucy helps me into the truck. She offers me fresh water, which I drink with desperate gratitude. She wraps me in a blanket she kept in the back. "I'll take you to Phoenix," she says as she starts the engine. "To the hospital first, and then to the police. What they've done to you is a crime." The word resonates in my mind. Yes, what Michael and Chloe did to me goes beyond family cruelty, beyond greed. They tried to kill me, and they almost succeeded. As the truck drives down the highway, leaving the scene of my abandonment, behind a new emotion rises through the pain and exhaustion: determination. I will not only survive this, I will make them pay for what they did. The desert blurs through the window. My eyes close, overcome by fatigue and relief. The last thing I see before drifting into a deep sleep is the worried face of Lucy, a stranger who showed more humanity than my own flesh and blood. The metal thermos she offers me gives off an aromatic steam. Cinnamon tea, my favorite. How did she know? I have no idea. But the gesture touches me more than I can express. Phoenix General Hospital is a maze of white corridors and the smell of disinfectant. I've been here for 3 days recovering from severe dehydration, sun exposure, and exhaustion. The doctors say I was lucky. A few more hours in the desert, and my 68-year-old body would have collapsed. Lucy comes to visit me every afternoon. This woman who was transporting crafts from a nearby town when she found me has become my guardian angel. She was the one who insisted on calling the police from the hospital. She was the one who held my hand as I recounted my story to the incredulous officers. "It's hard to believe," one of them had said, a young man with skeptical eyes. "Your own son. Greed makes monsters out of ordinary people," Lucy replied before I could speak. "And this lady isn't lying. I found her nearly dead on the highway." Eventually they believed me, or at least decided to investigate. They took my statement, photographed my injuries, collected samples from the water bottle, and the remains of the sandwich I still had. Today, Detective Ramirez enters my room with a grave but satisfied expression. He's a middle-aged man with the kind of face that has seen too many human tragedies to be easily surprised. "Mrs. Foster," he says, sitting by my bed, "we have news." I sit up slowly, preparing myself for whatever he's about to say. "We've arrested your son and your daughter-in-law," he continues. "We found them at your house packing your belongings. It seems they were planning to move out quickly." A part of me expected this news, but hearing it out loud hits me hard. Michael arrested. My son in handcuffs taken to a cell. Despite what he did to me, the image causes me sharp pain. "Did they confess?" I ask, my voice barely a whisper. "Not at first," Ramirez replies, "but we have solid evidence. The analysis of the water bottle showed traces of sedatives. We found documents in their house property transfer papers with your forged signature loan applications using your house as collateral. And most importantly, his cell phone had the GPS activated during the entire trip. We have an exact record of where they stopped and for how long." I close my eyes, absorbing the information. It wasn't an impulsive act, but a carefully crafted plan. Days, maybe weeks of preparation to get rid of me. "What will happen now?" I finally ask. They face serious charges. Abandonment of a vulnerable person with risk of death, forgery, attempted fraud. With the evidence we have, it's very likely they'll receive a significant sentence. I nod slowly. Justice. It's what I wanted, what I deserve. So why do I feel this emptiness in my chest? Can I see him? The question escapes my lips before I can stop it. Ramirez looks surprised. "Your son, I wouldn't recommend it, Mrs. Foster. Not now. I need to look him in the eye," I insist. "I need to understand." The detective sighs, rubbing his forehead. "I'll check with the DA, but I'm not promising anything." When he leaves, I'm left alone with my thoughts. The hospital room, which once felt like a safe haven, now feels like another prison. The white walls, the beeping machines, the nurses coming and going with professional smiles. Everything reminds me that my life has changed irrevocably. Lucy arrives in the afternoon, bringing wildflowers and a thermos of homemade tea. Her presence is a balm for my wounded soul. "They arrested them," I tell her as she pours tea into small plastic cups. She nods. "I heard it on the local news. It's good that there's justice." "Justice," I repeat, tasting the word. "My son will go to jail. The family I thought I had is destroyed. Is that justice?" Lucy takes my hand, her fingers rough from years of hard work. "Justice doesn't always bring peace, Emily. Sometimes it just brings necessary consequences." I ponder her words as I drink the hot tea. Necessary consequences. Yes, Michael and Chloe must face the consequences of their actions. But that doesn't mend the hole in my heart, the void where my trust in the world used to be. "What will I do now, Lucy?" I ask, exposing my vulnerability. "I can't go back to that house, not after this." "First you recover," she replies firmly. "Then one step at a time. My sister runs a community center here in Phoenix. They always need volunteer teachers for the after-school programs. Someone with your experience would be very valuable." The idea of being useful again, of teaching, of connecting with others, ignites a small spark within me. It's not a complete plan, not a solution to all my problems, but it's a start. "Thank you," I say simply. The words are insufficient to express my gratitude, but Lucy seems to understand. "We are stronger than we think, Emily," she says as she gathers her things to leave. "You survived the desert. You can survive this too." After she leaves, I gaze at the wildflowers she brought. They grew in harsh conditions, finding cracks in the rocks, taking advantage of every drop of rain, surviving against all odds. Like me. A week later, I'm discharged from the hospital. The legal proceedings against Michael and Chloe are underway. I wasn't allowed to see him after all. Maybe it's for the best. Maybe some wounds are too deep to face so soon. Lucy takes me to a small apartment her family keeps for visitors. "It's yours for as long as you need," she insists when I try to talk about rent. "Consider it a loan, not charity." I accept, promising myself I will find a way to repay her kindness someday. That night alone in an unfamiliar but safe space, I cry for the first time since the abandonment. I cry for the son I lost, for the life that fell apart, for the trust that was betrayed. I cry until I have no tears left, until exhaustion overcomes me. And when the dawn comes, I get up, get dressed, make coffee, and take the first step into my new life. A life I never expected to have at 68. A life I will have to build from the ground up, brick by brick. A life without my son, but perhaps with new connections, new purposes. The trial lasted 8 months. The forensic evidence of the drugged coffee, the forged documents, and the neighbors' testimonies about my progressive isolation proved irrefutable. Michael and Chloe received 5 years with the possibility of parole for good behavior. Linda, Chloe's mother, was not formally charged due to a lack of direct evidence, but her moral involvement in the plan was exposed during the trial. I saw her only once in the courthouse hallway. She looked at me with a mixture of hatred and fear, as if I were a ghost who had come back to haunt her. In a way, I was. My house was put up for sale. I couldn't imagine living there again among tainted memories. With the money, I bought a modest apartment near the community center, where I now work as a volunteer teaching art to children from underprivileged neighborhoods. Life goes on, different, unexpected, but it goes on, and me with it, one step at a time. The last ray of sun turned the heart monitor into a black silhouette against the wall as silence engulfed the final echoes of a broken family. The Hope Community Center is bustling with activity when I arrive each morning. Children running around, mothers exchanging recipes and advice, seniors playing dominoes at the patio tables. This place, which began as a temporary refuge, has become the center of my new life. 2 years have passed since that night in the desert. 2 years of rebuilding, of learning, of slow but steady healing. Grace, Lucy's sister and the center's director, greets me with her usual warm smile. "The kids are already asking for you," she says as we walk towards the room where I teach my painting classes. "James brought his finished project to show you." James, a 10-year-old boy with burn scars on his arms, is one of my most dedicated students. When he first came to the center, he barely spoke, ashamed of his scars. Now, after months of patient work with brushes and colors, he has transformed. Art gave him a language when words failed him, as it did for me. The classroom is set up with canvases, paints, and brushes. Today we're working on self-portraits, an ambitious project for children this age, but I believe in challenging them. I believe in showing them they can achieve more than they imagine. "Miss Emily," James exclaims when he sees me enter. He runs towards me proudly holding his canvas. He has painted a desert at sunset with vibrant colors that transform what could be a desolate landscape into something magically beautiful. "It's wonderful, James," I say, genuinely impressed. "You've captured the light perfectly." "It's for you," he says, holding out the canvas, "to thank you for teaching me." The gesture touches me deeply. I accept the gift, promising him it will have a special place in my apartment. The class goes by with laughter, paint splatters, and small victories. I watch these children, many of them facing difficult circumstances at home, and I marvel at their resilience, at how they find joy in small moments, at how they get up every time they fall. They remind me of myself. After class, Grace invites me to her office. There's a special glint in her eyes, the kind of look that anticipates good news. "We got a response from the foundation," she announces as soon as we close the door. "They approved the grant to expand the art program." I hold my breath. We had worked for months on that application, documenting the positive impact of art on the children at the center, planning a broader program that would include music and theater. "This means," I begin, almost afraid to complete the sentence. "It means you'll have a real salary, Emily," Grace confirms. "You'll no longer be just a volunteer. You'll be the official director of the art program with a budget for materials and for hiring assistants." The news hits me hard. A real job, a defined purpose, a recognition of what I've built here among the rubble of my former life. "I don't know what to say," I murmur, overwhelmed with emotion. "Say yes," Grace replies, laughing. "Say you'll continue to transform lives through art, as you've done with James and so many others." "Yes," I say finally, my voice firmer. "Of course, yes." That night in my small apartment, I look at James's painting. I've hung it on the main wall where I can see it from anywhere in the living room. His interpretation of the desert, luminous, vibrant, almost hopeful contrast with my own memories of that place. It makes me think about how different perspectives can transform the same reality. My phone rings, interrupting my thoughts. It's Lucy calling to confirm our dinner tomorrow. Since she rescued me, we've maintained a friendship that has become one of the pillars of my new life. "How was your day?" she asks after the initial greetings. I tell her about the grant, my new position James is painting. Her joy for me is so genuine I can almost feel it through the phone. "You deserve it, Emily," she says. "You've worked hard for this." "I never would have made it without you," I reply, gratitude forming a lump in my throat. "Without you, I wouldn't even be alive." "Nonsense," she replies with her usual bluntness. "I just picked you up off the road. You've done everything else yourself with your strength, your determination." After we hang up, I think about her words. Is it true? Have I been the one who rebuilt my life, brick by brick from the ground up? My gaze falls on a folder on the table. It contains the trial documents, the sentences, the police reports. I haven't opened them in months, but I haven't been able to get rid of them either. They are the tangible reminder of what I survived, of what I overcame. Michael must be serving his 3rd year in prison now. Sometimes I wonder how he is, if he has reflected on what he did, if he feels genuine remorse or just regret for being caught. I haven't tried to contact him. Some wounds are too deep, some betrayals too absolute. And yet sometimes in the quiet of the night, I remember the boy he was, the young man who brought me flowers on my birthday, the man who before Chloe came faithfully every Sunday for lunch. Where did that son get lost? At what point was love replaced by greed? Was it gradual or sudden? Were there signs I didn't see? Moments when I could have intervened. Unanswered questions that I have learned to let go of. The past cannot be changed. Only the present is in my hands, and I am determined to shape it with the same dedication with which I teach my students to shape clay and give color to canvas. The next morning brings a surprise. A letter from the Department of Parole. I open it with trembling hands, anticipating its contents. Dear Mrs. Foster, we are writing to inform you that Michael Foster has applied for early parole based on good behavior. As the victim of the crime, you have the right to submit an impact statement for the hearing scheduled for July 15th. The letter continues, but the words blur before my eyes. Michael wants to get out early. He wants to return to the outside world, and somehow my opinion matters in that decision. What will I say? That he's still a danger, that he deserves to serve every single day of his sentence, or that I believe in the possibility of redemption, like the one I preach to my students when they make mistakes? I don't have an immediate answer. I need time to process this, to examine my own conflicting feelings. I put the letter in a drawer and get ready to go to the center. Today, the community center is unusually quiet. The children are focused on their canvases, capturing memories from their summer vacations. I watch their faces, the intensity with which they mix colors, the delicacy with which they draw lines. In moments like this, I find peace, but the letter still weighs on my mind. Michael wants parole. My son, who tried to kill me, could get out before serving his full sentence. "You're very quiet today, Miss Emily," says James, looking up from his painting. His eyes, too wise for his age, study me with concern. "I'm just thinking, honey," I reply with a smile that doesn't reach my eyes. "Sad thoughts or happy thoughts?" he insists. "Complicated ones, I admit. Sometimes life presents us with difficult decisions." James nods as if he understands perfectly, even though he's only 11. Maybe he does. The children who come to the center have faced more hardships than many adults. "My mom says when you don't know what to do, you should listen here," he says, pointing to his chest, "because your head sometimes gets confused, but your heart knows." His words, so simple and profound, stay with me throughout the day. What does my heart say about Michael underneath? Layers of pain, betrayal, and fear. What is left of the maternal love that was once unconditional? That afternoon after my classes, I sit on a bench in the park near the center. The Arizona sun warms my skin as I watch families pass by, mothers holding their children's hands, fathers carrying their little ones on their shoulders, grandparents sharing ice cream with their grandchildren, everyday scenes of family love that now seem to belong to another dimension. "Can I sit?" The voice startles me. I look up and see Grace with 2 cups of coffee in her hands. I make room for her on the bench. "I saw you leave with a worried look on your face," she says, offering me one of the cups. "Want to talk about it?" I tell her about the letter, the parole hearing, my confusion. Grace listens without interrupting, giving me the space to sort out my thoughts as I voice them. "What would you do?" I finally ask. Grace sighs, taking a sip of her coffee before answering. "I can't tell you what to do, Emily. No one can. It's your story, your pain, your decision." "I know," I reply, "but I need perspective." "Then I'll tell you what I see," she says after a moment. "I see a woman who survived the unimaginable, who rebuilt her life from scratch, who found ways to transform her pain into something beautiful that helps others." She pauses. "I also see someone who, despite everything, has not let bitterness consume her." Her words move me. It's true that I've fought against resentment, against the desire for revenge. I haven't always won that battle, but I've never stopped trying. "The question isn't whether Michael deserves your forgiveness," Grace continues. "The question is what you need to keep healing." My hands, which survived the desert and learned to create beauty, now held the coffee cup firmly as the evening light transformed the park, reminding me that after darkness there is always light. That night, sitting in my small studio, I take out a pen and paper. If I'm going to submit a statement for the hearing, I need to organize my thoughts. But instead of words, my hand begins to draw. I sketch Michael's face. Not as I last saw him, hardened by greed and calculation, but as I remember him in better times. Michael at 5 with his toothless grin. Michael as a teenager, his brow furrowed in concentration as he studied. Michael as an adult before Chloe, with the first expression lines framing his eyes. The images flow one after another, telling the story of a son who was loved, of a relationship that was real, before it twisted into something unrecognizable. When I finish, I have a collage of drawn memories before me, a shared life captured in graphite strokes. and between the images, like invisible threads connecting them, is the question I haven't dared to ask directly. Is there any chance of redemption for Michael? I don't have an answer. I only know I need to see him, to face him, before I can decide. The next day I contact the Department of Parole. I request a visit to the prison before the hearing. I want to talk to Michael face to face without lawyers or officers mediating. I want to look into the eyes of the man who tried to kill me and see if anything is left of the son I raised. The request is approved with surprising speed. 3 days later, I find myself in the visiting room of the state penitentiary. My hands are trembling, clutching my purse. My heart is pounding against my ribs, and then they bring him in. Michael is thinner than I remembered. His hair, once black like mine, shows premature gray. He walks with his head down, his shoulders slumped. When he sees me, he stops short as if he's seen a ghost. Maybe to him I am. "Mom," he says the word barely audible. "Michael," I reply, my voice firmer than I expected. He sits across from me, separated by a metal table bolted to the floor. His hands handcuffed rest on the cold surface, hands I once held as he learned to walk, hands that later pushed me into the abyss. "I didn't expect to see you," he finally says, breaking the tense silence. "I received the notice about your parole hearing," I explain. "They wanted my statement." He nods slowly, not looking at me directly. "Are you going to oppose it?" "I don't know yet." I answer honestly. "That's why I'm here. I need to understand." "Understand what?" "Why, Michael, I need to know why." He closes his eyes as if the question causes him physical pain. When he opens them again, I see something I didn't expect. Tears. "There's no excuse," he says, his voice breaking. "I could tell you it was Chloe's idea, or that her mother manipulated me, or that I was desperate for money. All of that is true, but it's not an excuse." "Why should I believe you now?" I asked. Chloe looked over at the swings where the children were playing. "I don't expect you to." The silence between us was heavier than any explanation. I take a deep breath, trying to stay composed. "Do you know what I felt, Michael? Do you have any idea what it's like for your own son to abandon you in the desert to die?" "No," he admits, the tears now flowing freely. "I can't imagine that horror, and I live with that guilt every day, every hour." "Is that what you want me to believe?" "That you're sorry." "I'm not asking you to believe anything," he replies, surprising me. "I don't deserve your trust. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I understand the magnitude of what I did, and that if I could go back—" "But you can't," I interrupt. "No one can." "No," he concedes. "I can't." We sit in silence, the weight of the irreparable between us. I look at my son, searching for the monster who abandoned me. But I only see a broken man consumed by remorse. Is it genuine, or is it another manipulation? "What happened to Chloe?" I ask, changing the subject. "She's serving her sentence in another facility," he replies. "We're allowed to write to each other. She's changed too, Mom. Prison makes you face your demons. Are you still together?" He shakes his head. "Not like before. There's too much guilt between us now, but we support each other. We're all we have." His words hurt me more than I expected. There was a time when I was all he had. Before Chloe, before the greed, before the betrayal. "If you get parole, what will you do?" I ask. "Work. Try to rebuild some kind of life. And—" he hesitates as if fearing my reaction. "And find some way to repair the damage I caused. Not to you. I know that's impossible, but maybe to others." "You were always strong," Michael murmured. "No, I learned to be," I replied, adjusting the edge of his sheet. His eyes closed briefly. Too late to understand that. The visit ends too soon, and yet not soon enough. I stand up, picking up my purse, feeling the weight of the decision I have to make. "Mom," Michael says as I'm about to leave, "whatever your decision is about the hearing, I'll accept it. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry more than words can say." I nod, unable to respond. What do you say to the son who tried to kill you, but now cries with remorse? There's no manual for this. There are no precedents in my experience. I leave the prison with more questions than answers. The Arizona sun greets me relentless and bright, reminding me that life goes on, that the world keeps spinning despite our personal dramas. In the taxi back home, I make a decision. It won't be easy, it won't be perfect, but it's the only one that allows me to move forward without being consumed by the past. That night, I write my statement for the hearing. I don't ask for revenge or additional punishment, nor do I advocate for immediate release. I simply state the facts, the impact they had on me, and I express my belief in the possibility of change, in the human capacity for genuine repentance. I cannot forgive the unforgivable, I write in the conclusion. But I can choose not to let hatred define the rest of my life. If Michael Foster has found true remorse and is committed to repairing the damage he has caused, I believe he deserves the opportunity to prove it. I sign the document, seal it in an envelope, and leave it on the table. Tomorrow I will send it. Tomorrow I will take another step on this unexpected path that has become my life. For now I take my brushes and a blank canvas. There is beauty I need to create, stories I need to tell through color and form, my story with all its scars and its moments of unexpected grace. A bird's feather perfectly white landed on the freshly turned earth. I left it there, rocked by the same wind that had once erased my footprints in the desert. The Rebirth in the Desert exhibition occupies the main gallery of the Phoenix Cultural Center. My paintings, landscapes of the Sonoran Desert, portraits of survivors, scenes from life at the community center, cover the white walls, drawing curious glances and admiring comments. I never imagined this moment. At 71, having my first solo exhibition, being introduced as the artist Emily Foster, whose work explores themes of resilience, transformation, and hope. Grace is by my side, beaming with pride. "See, I told you your work deserved to be seen." I smile, still overwhelmed by the attention. Local journalists have come to cover the event. An art critic from Los Angeles has written a glowing review. Half of the works have even been sold, with the proceeds going to expand the art programs at the community center. "Emily," Lucy calls, approaching with a glass of champagne. "There's someone who wants to meet you, a children's book editor. He's interested in your illustrations." The night moves on with introductions, congratulations, and conversations about art and purpose. I feel like I'm living someone else's life, a version of myself I never knew existed. And then I see him. At the back of the gallery, intently observing one of my most personal paintings, an abstract self-portrait titled, "What the Desert Didn't Take," is Michael, my son, free. It's been 8 months since the parole hearing. He was granted early release with strict restrictions, weekly check-ins with his parole officer, maintaining a steady job, not leaving the state without authorization, and no contact with me without my explicit consent. I haven't seen him since. He hasn't tried to communicate, respecting my space and the terms of his freedom. How did he know about the exhibition? Why did he come? What is he looking for? Grace follows my gaze and her expression tenses. "Do you want me to ask him to leave?" "No," I reply, surprising myself. "Are you okay? Are you sure?" I nod slowly. "Yes, it's a public space. He has a right to be here." But I don't approach him, and he doesn't approach me. For the next hour, we move in separate orbits within the gallery, aware of each other's presence but maintaining a distance. It's a strange dance of proximity and remoteness, of acknowledgement and caution. Finally, as the crowd begins to thin and the exhibition is about to close, Michael heads for the exit. As he passes near me, our eyes meet briefly. "Congratulations," he says simply. "Your work is beautiful." Before I can respond, he continues on his way and leaves the gallery. That night, back in my apartment, I can't sleep. The brief interaction with Michael has stirred up emotions I thought I had under control. It's not pain I feel, nor fear. It's something more complex, more nuanced, a mix of sadness for what we lost, acceptance of what is, and perhaps very faintly curiosity about what could be. The next morning, I receive an envelope at the community center. There's no return address, but I know who it's from. Inside is a handwritten letter and a newspaper clipping. "Mom," the letter begins, "first I want to apologize for showing up at your exhibition unannounced. It wasn't my intention to make you uncomfortable. I saw the announcement in the paper, and I wanted to see what you've become, what you've achieved, despite what we did to you." He goes on to explain that he's now working as an assistant at a rehabilitation center for addicts. "It's not a coincidence," he writes. "I chose this path because I understand what it's like to lose everything because of bad decisions. I want to help others avoid making the same mistakes." The newspaper clipping is a small article about a mentoring program for at-risk youth. Michael is in a photo working with teenagers in a community garden. His face shows a serenity I don't recognize, so different from the tormented man I saw in prison. "I'm not asking for anything," the letter concludes. "I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to honor the second chance you gave me by not opposing my parole. I live every day trying to be a better man than the one who betrayed you." He signs it simply, "With respect and remorse, Michael." I fold the letter carefully and put it in my purse. I don't know what I feel. I don't know what I want to do with this information. I only know that for the first time since the abandonment, the image of Michael in my mind is beginning to transform. It's not forgiveness, not yet. But maybe it's the beginning of something. A recognition that people can change, that remorse can be genuine, that the future is not set in stone. The following weeks bring unexpected changes. The editor I met at the exhibition offers me a contract to illustrate a children's book about the Sonoran Desert. I accept enthusiastically, diving into a new creative project that combines my love for art and teaching. The community center receives a generous anonymous donation for the art program. Grace suspects it's from Michael, although there's no way to confirm it. "What do you want me to do?" she asks. "Accept it or return it?" I think about the question. If the money is from Michael, is it an attempt to buy my forgiveness? Or is it a genuine way to contribute to something he knows I value? Accept it. I finally decide. The children need it more than we need our pride. A month later, I receive another letter from Michael. This time, it's a formal invitation to the inauguration of a new program at the rehabilitation center where he works. "I'll understand if you don't want to come," he writes, "but it would mean a lot to me if you could see the work we're doing." The invitation sits on my table for days. I look at it every morning at breakfast, every night before bed. Am I ready for this step? Do I want to open that door, knowing I might not be able to close it again? Finally, the day before the event, I make my decision. The rehabilitation center is in a renovated building north of the city. When I arrive, a small group of people is gathered in the courtyard. Center staff, recovering addicts, supportive family members. Michael is talking to a young man, his posture relaxed but attentive. When he sees me, he freezes for a moment, as if he can't believe his eyes. I approach slowly, aware of the curious glances. To these people, I am just an elderly woman arriving at a community event. They don't know our history. They don't know the abyss we have crossed to get to this moment. "You came," Michael says when I'm standing in front of him. "I wanted to see." I reply simply. He introduces me to the young man he was talking to, a former addict who is now a counselor in training. Then he shows me around the center, explaining the different programs, the therapeutic approach, the results they've achieved. He speaks with passion and knowledge, revealing a side of him I had never seen. "How did you end up here?" I ask as we walk through the garden that residents maintain as part of their therapy. "In prison," he replies. "I joined a recovery program. Not because I had addictions, but because I wanted to understand what leads someone to destroy what they love. I found answers I didn't expect." "What kind of answers?" "That selfishness is an addiction, that greed consumes you like any drug, that we justify the unjustifiable when we put our desires above everything else." He pauses. "I learned that the way back begins with brutal honesty about who you've been and a clear vision of who you want to be." His words resonate with me in an unexpected way. Isn't that what I've been doing these past 3 years, brutally facing what happened to me? Consciously deciding who I want to be despite it. The opening ceremony is simple but emotional. Michael speaks briefly, thanking those who made the new program possible. He doesn't mention his past specifically, but there are veiled references to unforgivable mistakes and the possibility of redemption. When the event ends, we meet again by the exit. "Thank you for coming," he says. "It means more than I can express." "You're doing good work here," I answer honestly. "I'm trying to repair some of the damage I've caused in the world," he says. "I can never undo what I did to you, but I can try to make my life from now on have some value." I nod, understanding that impulse perfectly. "I'm rebuilding too, Michael. In different ways, we are both trying to create something new from the ruins." A silence settles between us, not awkward, but contemplative. Finally, I dare to ask what's been on my mind since I received his first letter. "What happened with Chloe?" His expression darkens slightly. "She's still in prison. They denied her parole. Her behavior hasn't been exemplary." "Are you still in touch?" "Minimally," he admits. "I write to her occasionally, but our lives have taken very different paths." "And Linda?" "She's living with a friend. She's bitter, resentful. She hasn't accepted her share of responsibility for what happened." At the funeral, Linda kept her distance. When everyone had left, I saw her place an old photograph of Michael as a child on the casket. Our eyes met for an instant. In her eyes there was rage, but also the same pain I felt. Without words, we each went our own way. We part with an awkward gesture halfway between a handshake and something more personal. It's not reconciliation, not complete forgiveness, but it's a start, a small step on a path I never expected to walk. On the way home, I reflect on the unexpected turns of life. 3 years ago, abandoned in the desert, I thought it was all over, that my story would end on that desolate highway under the relentless sun. Instead, I found a new beginning. A second life that in many ways is fuller and more authentic than the first. And now Michael also seems to be finding his own path to redemption. Will that path lead us to reunite as mother and son? It's too soon to know. There are wounds that may never fully heal, trust that may never be fully restored. But today, for the first time since that night in the desert, I contemplate the possibility of a future where the past doesn't define every interaction, where pain is not the only legacy between us. It's a fragile, tentative thought, like a green shoot in scorched earth. It will need time, care, patience. It might not survive, but it exists, and that in itself is a small miracle. The half-empty glass of water by his bed reflected the window, fracturing the light into tiny rainbows on the white sheet. The phone rings while I'm finishing the illustrations for my second children's book. It's been 6 months since the inauguration at the Rehabilitation Center, 6 months of cautious but constant contact with Michael. Occasional messages, a shared coffee in a public place, small steps toward something we don't yet dare to name. Emily Foster. The voice on the other end of the line is professional, distant. "Yes, this is she." "I'm calling from General Hospital. You're listed as the emergency contact for Michael Foster." My heart stops for a second. "What's happened?" "Your son was admitted this morning. We need you to come as soon as possible." The world blurs as I drive to the hospital. An accident. A sudden illness. The woman didn't give details. Only the urgency in her tone told me the situation was serious. At the emergency room reception, they direct me to a waiting area where I find Chloe. She is thinner than I remembered her face, marked by her years in prison. When she sees me, she stands up abruptly. "Mrs. Emily," she says, her voice trembling, I didn't know if you would come." "What happened to Michael?" I ask directly. She collapses back into the chair as if the words are too heavy for her. "A brain tumor. Inoperable." Her voice breaks. "The doctors say he has months, maybe weeks." The news hits me with physical force. I sit down next to her, needing support to keep from falling. When? "It started with headaches in prison," Chloe explains. "They got worse after his release. They diagnosed the tumor a month ago. He's been getting treatment, but this morning he collapsed at work." "Why didn't he tell me anything?" The question escapes my lips before I can stop it. Chloe looks at me with a mixture of sadness and understanding. "He said he didn't want to be a burden to you, not after everything he did." The irony is almost unbearable. My son, who once conspired to get rid of me because he saw me as a burden, now suffers in silence so as not to become a burden to me. Can I see him? They're stabilizing him. The doctor will come get us when he's ready. We sit in silence, two women connected by the man we both loved and betrayed in different ways. When did you get out of prison? I finally ask more to break the silence than out of real interest. 3 weeks ago. Compassionate release when Michael's condition worsened. I nod, processing the information. Where are you living? In a small apartment near the rehabilitation center. Michael insisted on continuing to work until he couldn't anymore. The doctor arrives before I can ask more questions. He's a young man with tired eyes and a grave expression. Family of Michael Foster. We stand up simultaneously. I'm his mother, I say. His wife, Chloe adds, although I know they never legally married. The doctor nods, not questioning the complicated family dynamic. Michael is stable for now, but the tumor has grown significantly. The intracranial pressure caused this morning's collapse. We've managed to reduce it temporarily, but... How much time? Chloe interrupts. It's hard to say, weeks, maybe a month or two. The cancer is aggressive and has reached a stage where treatments can only offer comfort, not a cure. My legs threaten to give out. The doctor must notice because he quickly pulls up a chair. Can I see him now? I ask when I regain some composure. Yes, but he's sedated. He probably won't wake up until tomorrow. It doesn't matter. I need to see him. He leads me through sterile corridors to a private room. Chloe follows us at a distance as if unsure of her right to be there. And then I see him. Michael, my son, connected to machines that monitor his vital signs with a bandage around his head. Michael lies motionless in the hospital bed, his face pale against the white sheets. The room is dimly lit, with only a small lamp illuminating his profile. I approach slowly as if afraid of waking him, although the doctor said he is deeply sedated. I sit by his bed watching my son's face. Under the effects of sedation, he looks younger, more vulnerable. I see traces of the boy. He was the teenager who rebelled against the world, the man I once knew, before everything went wrong. Chloe remains at the door as if not daring to fully enter this intimate space. Our eyes meet briefly, and in her eyes I see something I didn't expect: genuine shame. You can come closer, I finally say. He needs you too. She walks forward with hesitant steps and sits on the other side of the bed. Her hands, which tremble slightly, rest on Michael's. He's been asking for you, she says in a low voice, since they gave him the diagnosis. He wanted to talk to you to explain everything, but he was afraid you'd think he was just looking for your pity. Why didn't you tell me? Chloe looks down. I didn't think I had the right to enter your life again, not after what we did. Silence settles between us, broken only by the rhythmic beeping of the machines. Two women watching over a dying man, united by a past of betrayal, and perhaps by a present of shared repentance. What happened to Linda? I ask, remembering Chloe's mother, the woman who had so much influence on the plan to get rid of me. She died 8 months ago, Chloe replies. Lung cancer. It was fast. I'm sorry. I say, automatically surprised to feel something akin to compassion. She never repented, Chloe continues. To the very end, she justified what we did. She said we were only looking out for everyone's best interests. And do you still believe that? Her eyes fill with tears. No, not anymore. Prison gives you a lot of time to think, to face what you've done. And seeing Michael consumed by guilt, that made me truly understand the horror of what we did to you. I nod, not knowing what else to say. A part of me wants to hate her to keep alive the rage that sustained me for so long. But in the face of Michael's imminent death, that hatred seems small, insignificant. I picked up his drawings with the same hands that once cradled him, now illuminated by the dim light filtering through the hospital curtains, so different from the relentless brightness of the desert that should have buried me. We spend the night at the hospital, taking turns resting on the uncomfortable sofa in the room. Neither of us wants to leave, afraid that Michael will wake up and find himself alone. At dawn, a movement in the bed alerts us. Michael is waking up. His eyes open slowly, disoriented at first. "Mom." His voice is barely a hoarse whisper. "I'm here, son," I reply, moving closer. His gaze clears as he recognizes me. Then he sees Chloe, and a complex expression crosses his face. Relief, guilt, resignation. "I didn't want you to see me like this," he says, trying to sit up. "Stay still." I order with the firmness only a mother can have. "Don't waste your energy." He obeys, lying back down. "I'm sorry," he murmurs. "I wanted to tell you, but—" "Shh," I interrupt. "It doesn't matter now." "Yes, it does," he insists, his voice stronger. "I've spent these past months trying to repair some of the damage I caused. I wanted you to see that I had changed, that I understood the magnitude of my mistake. I didn't want your last memory of me to be of the man who betrayed you." His words move me more than I expected. It's not forgiveness he's seeking, but redemption. Not my pity, but my acknowledgement of his change. "I have seen you," I assure him. "I've seen your work at the center. I've seen how you help others. I've been watching you, Michael." A tear escapes from his eye. "Thank you," he says simply. The following days we establish a routine. I temporarily move into Michael and Chloe's apartment, which is closer to the hospital. We take turns staying with him, making sure he is never alone. When he's awake, we talk about everything and nothing. Memories of his childhood, stories of my work at the community center, plans for the programs he started at the rehabilitation center. We avoid talking about the desert, the abandonment, the betrayal. Not out of denial, but because it is no longer the center of our story. Like an old scar, it's there, but it no longer constantly hurts. One afternoon, while Chloe has gone home to rest, Michael asks me to read to him. His eyesight has begun to fail, another symptom of the tumor's progression. "What do you want me to read?" I ask, looking through the books by his bed. "Your books," he replies, "the ones you illustrated. I want to see the world through your eyes." So I read him The Desert Blooms, my first children's book showing him the illustrations describing the colors and shapes to compensate for his blurry vision. Then Desert Stars, the second one not yet published but already in layout. "They're beautiful, Mom," he says when I finish. "You always had that gift for seeing beauty where others only saw desolation." "It's a lesson I learned late in life," I reply. "Sometimes we need to lose everything to see what really matters." He nods, understanding perfectly. "Do you know what the hardest part of dying is?" he asks suddenly. The question startles me, but I answer honestly. "No, tell me." "It's not the pain or the fear of the unknown. It's knowing that I'm leaving things, unresolved wounds, not fully healed." "Michael, don't—" "Let me finish. I need to say this." He takes a breath as if gathering strength. "What we did to you was unforgivable, I know. I don't expect your complete forgiveness. But I need you to know that I now understand the value of what I tried to destroy. I understand what unconditional love means because it's what you've shown me by coming here, by taking care of me despite everything." Tears are streaming down my face. It's a journey, and we're walking it together. He takes my hand, his fingers weak but determined. "Thank you for giving me this chance, for letting me die as your son, not as your executioner." That night when Chloe returns, I find her crying in the hallway outside the room. "I can't stand it," she confesses when I approach. "Seeing him like this, knowing I helped destroy the years we could have had together, the years you could have had with him." I hug her, surprising both of us. "The time we have left is all that matters now," I tell her. "Don't waste it on regrets." The weeks pass, and Michael visibly weakens. The doctors constantly adjust his pain medication, but there are days when nothing seems to help. In those moments, we can only be present, holding his hands, reminding him he is not alone. One morning, while Chloe is sleeping exhaustedly on the sofa, Michael calls me to his side. "I have something for you," he says, his voice barely audible. "In the drawer." I open the drawer of the nightstand and find an envelope. Inside is a legal document and a letter. "It's my will," he explains. "I've left everything I have to the art program at the community center. It's not much, but I wanted it to go to something you care about." "Michael, you didn't need to." "And the letter," he continues, ignoring my protest. "It's for you, for when I'm gone. Promise me you'll read it then, not before." "I promise," I say, putting the envelope in my purse. "One more thing," he adds, making a visible effort. "Chloe, she has no one else. When I'm gone, I'll take care of her. I promise, understanding what he's asking. She won't be alone." A faint smile lights up his face. "You were always the strongest of us, Mom. Now I understand where that strength came from." 3 days later, Michael falls into a coma. The doctors warn us it's a matter of hours, maybe a day or two. Chloe and I stay by his side talking to him, even though we don't know if he can hear us holding his hands as his breathing becomes more and more shallow. In the early morning of the second day, as a storm rages over Phoenix, Michael breathes his last. A soft, almost imperceptible sigh, and then silence. The heart monitor emits a continuous beep that seems to last an eternity before the nurses rush in. There is nothing to be done. My son is gone. The funeral is simple but surprisingly well attended. Residents and staff from the rehabilitation center, work colleagues, even some of my students from the community center come to pay their respects. They all have stories about the Michael I barely got to know, the patient counselor, the loyal friend, the man determined to do good. Chloe stands by my side throughout the ceremony, her presence a constant reminder of our shared history, of the strange connection we have forged in these past weeks. When everyone has left, and it's just the two of us in front of the freshly covered grave, I take Michael's letter from my purse. "Do you want me to leave you alone to read it?" Chloe asks. "No," I reply. "Stay." I open the envelope with trembling hands and unfold the letter. "Dear Mom," it begins. "If you're reading this, it means I've finally paid for my mistakes in the only way the universe saw fit. I don't see my illness as a punishment, but as an opportunity to put things in perspective, to understand what really matters." And he goes on to talk about his process of change, how prison and then the illness taught him the value of time, of relationships, of the unconditional love he once scorned. "My biggest regret," he writes, "is not dying young. It's having wasted the years we had, having valued the material over the irreplaceable. But my greatest comfort is that in the end, you allowed me to be your son again. You gave me the gift of your presence, your care, even though I didn't deserve it." Tears blur my vision, but I continue reading. "I ask you for one last favor. Help Chloe find her way. She is also changing, learning, growing. She will need guidance, and there is no one better than you to show her how to rebuild after devastation." The letter ends with a postscript that brings a smile through my tears. "P.S. Plant something in the desert for me. Something that will flourish against all odds, just like you did." I fold the letter carefully and put it away. Chloe looks at me expectantly, but doesn't ask about its contents. She respects my privacy, my pain. "Let's go home," I say finally. "There's a lot to do." In the following months, Chloe and I find an unexpected balance. We're not friends exactly, but we share a bond that no one else could understand. She starts volunteering at the community center, helping with administrative tasks. She has a knack for numbers, for organization talents she once used for selfish ends, and now puts to the service of others. I continue with my art classes, my illustrations, my rebuilt life. The pain of losing Michael is there, but it is not paralyzing. It is a part of me, like the experience in the desert, like everything I have lived through. A year after the funeral, Chloe and I travel to the highway where I was abandoned. We bring desert plants, cacti, agaves, ocotillos. We plant them by the side of the road, creating a small oasis where before there was only desolation. "Why here?" Chloe asks, as she waters the plants with the water we brought. "Doesn't it bring back bad memories? Places aren't good or bad in themselves," I reply. "They are what we do in them, what we leave behind." We finish planting in silence, each lost in our own thoughts. As we get back in the car, I look one last time at the small garden we have created. "Do you think they'll survive?" Chloe asks, following my gaze. Some will, some won't, I answer honestly. But the ones that do will be stronger for the hardships they faced, like us. We drive back to Phoenix as the sun begins to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The desert, which was once the scene of my abandonment, now stretches before me like a canvas of possibilities. At 72, I have learned that life rarely follows the path we plan, that pain can be turned into purpose, that betrayal can give way to understanding, that even in the driest desert life finds a way to bloom. It's not the ending I expected for my story. It's better, it's real, it's mine. My hands, which survived the desert and learned to create beauty, now held the paintbrush firmly as the dawn light transformed my studio, reminding me that after darkness there is always light. The end.